कॉमरेड साथियों, 134वां यौम मई हम एक बहुत ही बदतरीन सूरत हाल में मना रहे हैं। ये ऐसी सूरत हाल है जिसमें पूरी इंसानियत जो है वबा का शिकार है। कोरोना की वबा ने करोड़ों इंसानों को मुतासिर किया है और इसके नतीजे में ना सिर्फ नौ इंसान जो है उसकी बका ख़तरे में पड़ गई है, बल्कि पूरी दुनिया की इकॉनमी भी उसके बुनियाद के ऊपर तबाही का शिकार है। इसके नतीजे में करोड़ों लोग बेरोज़गार हो गए हैं और करोड़ों से भी ज़्यादा अरबों की तादाद में इससे इकनॉमिकली मुतासिर हुए हैं। इस सूरत हाल में पूरी दुनिया का जो हेल्थ का सिस्टम है वो आवाम को, लोगों को मुतासिर करने में या उनकी ज़िंदगियों को बचाने में नाकाम हो गया है। इसी तरीके से जो इकनॉमिक सिस्टम है वो भी कोलैप्स हो गया है। इस सूरत हाल में ख़ुसूसन पाकिस्तान में हम ये देखते हैं कि तकरीबन 1 करोड़ 20 लाख इंसानों के ख़ुसूसी तौर पे मेहनत कशों के बेरोज़गार होने का अगले 3 या 4 माह में ख़तरा पैदा हो गया है। इस वक्त भी कोई 6 मिलियन के करीब वर्कर्स जो हैं वो बेरोज़गार हो चुके हैं। रियासत जो है वो सेहत की सहूलियात मुहैया करने में नाकाम हो गई है और टेस्टिंग की किट्स की जो ज़रूरत थी वो देने में नाकाम हो गई है। इसी तरीके से जो हेल्थ के वर्कर्स हैं जो इस कोरोना की वबा से लड़ रहे हैं उनको भी प्रोटेक्शन देने में नाकाम हो गई है। फैक्ट्रियों कारखानों के अंदर हुकूमती अहकामात के मुताबिक के बावजूद जो है वर्कर्स को जॉब से निकाला जा रहा है, उनकी उजरतें नहीं दी जा रही। स्टेट बैंक ने मालिकान को, इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट को ये सहूलत फ़राहम की है कि वो 3% लोन के ऊपर जो है वो 3 महीने की तनख्वाहें दे सकते हैं, लेकिन सरमायादारों ने वो लोन भी लेने से इनकार कर दिया है। इस सूरत हाल में एक ही रास्ता बचता है कि मेहनत कश तबका जो है इस वबाई सूरत हाल का न सिर्फ ख़ुद मुकाबला करे बल्कि सरमायादारी के जितने इजहार हैं उसको जो है ख़ात्मे के लिए जद्दोजहद करे। आज के दिन के मौके पर हमारा मुतालबा है कि सारी दुनिया में हेल्थ की फैसिलिटीज़ को फ्री किया जाए। इसी तरीके से तमाम वर्कर्स जो हैं उनकी जॉब को बैनुल अक़वामी तौर पे प्रोटेक्शन करने का तरीक़ाकार तय किया जाए और लोगों को नौकरियों से निकालने का और उनको जो है उनकी जो उजरतें रोकने का सिलसिला बंद किया जाए। इस आज के दिन हम पूरी दुनिया के मेहनत कशों से मुतालबा करते हैं, जब जब इंसानी तारीख़ में वबा या कोई भी इस तरह का बहरान आया है उस बहरान से निकलने के लिए एक नई तारीख़ रकम हुई है और हम ये समझते हैं कि वबा के ख़ात्मे के साथ ही कैपिटलिज़म के ख़ात्मे का भी इम्कानात पैदा हो जाएंगे। मज़दूर जद्दोजहद ज़िंदाबाद, मज़दूरों का बैनुल अक़वामी इत्तेहाद ज़िंदाबाद।
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eline Banke, and I welcome you to the 3rd episode of the School of Resistance, a project by IIPM, NT Gent, Academie der Künste Berlin, Medico International, and funded by Kulturstiftung des Bundes. A School of Resistance is a bi-weekly live stream format that tries to create an online think tank on change with experts in resistance. The live stream takes the fallout of the global economy caused by COVID-19 as a starting point and an entry to think about possible solutions and alternatives this current crisis might give rise to. To do so, we invite experts on change and resistance from all over the world. And for this episode entitled Distributing Dignity, Global Supply Chains and Human Rights, we invited political activists Nasir, Mansoor and Zehra. I am very happy and very honored as well to welcome the both of you, Zehra, Nasir. Thank you very much for joining me in this conversation tonight. But let me properly introduce you first. Our first guest is Zehra. She's a political activist and a committed feminist. She's the General Secretary of the Home-Based Women's Workers Federation. That's a union that organizes women who work either as home workers or in informal employment in textile companies, the packaging industry, weaving mills, carpet, jewelry production, and the manufacturing of footballs. Next to Zehra is our second guest, which is Nasir Mansoor, and who has been a political activist already since his student days at Karachi University, where he participated in the resistance against the long-term military dictator Zia and being the Deputy General Secretary of the National Trade Union Federation Pakistan, Nasir mainly defends the rights of the Pakistani textile workers. That also brings us to the topic of this episode, namely the current working and living situation of textile workers in Pakistan and the current status of the global production and supply chains of what we call our global economy. Because more than anything, COVID-19 illustrated the patterns of our global production and also how codependent the lives of our global society have become. In countries such as Pakistan and Bangladesh, these interdependencies have devastating consequences, with thousands of workers that lost their job and are suffering from the effects the human rights crisis has and that has been raging for such a long time in our global capitalist system. Before we start this conversation, I quickly want to remind you of the possibility to enter into this conversation. You can do that by asking questions, either by sending them to our email address, schoolofresistance@ntegent.be, by commenting on the live stream on Facebook or via Twitter by using the hashtag School of Resistance. I will take on most of them probably at the end of the live stream, but I will also try to forward them and to present them to my guests throughout the conversation. Maybe it's a good way to start by reflecting on what we saw, on what this live stream opened with, because that was a speech that Nasir gave on the occasion of the International Workers' Day, and where he already quickly touched upon the crisis in Pakistan that is happening now. But I think it might be good if we could start and open this conversation by sketching out the scope and the gravity of the current situation of the garment workers in Pakistan. Because in the text you wrote, Nasir, for the occasion of this debate, you mentioned that more than 6 million workers have already lost their job, and that economists expect this number to rise to more than 17 million in the next coming of days, weeks, months. Could you perhaps contextualize these numbers of job losses, of other labor violations that are happening in Pakistan today, and comment on the main causes that lie behind them?
First, thank you to invite me. Sometimes it's a very rare opportunity that people from Global South speak with the international on that kind of forums where we can raise our voices. And it's good that we have good comrades and friends and a network that uh, loud our voices. What we speak, they will give us a louder uh, dimension and louder impact in a societies where there is a lot of consumers. So I can share it with that what is happening at the moment, and we have a double kind of effect. Before the corona, there was in 2019 there was one agreement with the IMF in July 2019, which forced Pakistani government to make some drastic changes in their economies, and which affect a lot on the workers. The first thing was that they have withdraw all the subsidy to the textile and garment sector. It called a zero rating system. It was withdrawn. So it means that now after that there was a lot of pressure on the textile and garments because they are getting the electricity and gases on a very high prices. That was the crisis with the textile and garment, and which make all effect on the other sectors also. The other one was that Pakistani currency was slashed. The value of currency was depreciated for more than 30 to 35%. So it means that actual wages of the worker will decrease around the 50%. And then there's a withdrawal of a state subsidy on all things. So it will increase daily use item from 40 to 50%. There was charges on electricity and gas charges increased about 50 to 200%. Medicines increased about 300%. So it was a drastic effect on the working workers and ordinary peoples. So even when we were talking about it, we were discussing that one, and there was a crisis in the industry. Then the coronavirus crisis come in the month of January. And the government was very much, they are very conservative and they don't care about it. They think that it is nothing, it is for only Europe, it is only for the countries where there is a cold, and a country like Pakistan where temperature is more than 40 degrees Celsius, so it can't affect us. And then they don't care about what the uh, medical experts, trade union people, conscious people always tell them that that is a big problem. So you should not follow British and Americans or Iranians. You have to look into it how the Vietnam and other countries they have look into the things. So they always give us the example of South British. There is a no problem, but when there is a problem started, then they get a new excuse. Now there is a more than 100,000 positive cases, out of which 200 workers, 2,000 people died. The the very unfortunate thing is that in last 3 months, only 1,000 people died, and in last 10 days, in a June, 1,000 work people died. So it is a multiplying now. So the effect is a very strong on a textile and garment. There was a lockdown, and a lockdown because of the lockdown, as I told about that around the 6 million workers has been retrenched from their job, out of which 70% are from textile and garment. Textile and garment is there's around $27 billion each year we fetch as a foreign exchange through a textile and garment. So it means that there's a totally collapse. Nothing is happening over there. Order has been cancelled. The brands have withdrawn all their orders, and every day we are getting a news that workers were retrenched from their factories and departments. So the government announced that trillion of Pakistani rupees as a compensation, as a package to the industry and industrial, especially for the textile and garment. But they have announced for the workers, but they don't give it to the workers. Worker didn't get out of it anything. So I think that because of IMF policies and now is because of the corona, we are totally industry is at the verge of collapse. And our own policies, IMF policies, and international brands had withdrawal their facilities. You see, H&M has given 500,000 dollars to WHO, yeah, to show that to people that that company is very much they are talking about social responsibility, and they want to show that they have the human face. But in the ground, the factories where they get their productions, they are retrenching workers. Just in one factory, 15,000 workers have been retrenched within that period of a corona and the lockdown. And in the one factory, there was a firing on the workers, and the case was registered against the workers, and workers were arrested and they were sent to the jail. And now today we get to know that they were now bailed out from the jail, but the cases are them against them. And the FIR, first information report with the police, was put in a way that they put three names and 800 unknown names of the workers. So any worker can put in it, and everybody, they say that if you talked about union, about your rights, about your wages, or about your bonuses, they will put their name on an unknown worker who have attacked. So the police will arrest them. So that kind of a fear they are putting on the workers, and number of factories which are producing for H&M, Levi's, Mango, Adidas, Inditex, all these in these factories, these kinds of happening every day. Somewhere we get to know about it. In majority of factories, we don't know about it because workers don't know about their rights at the moment. So that is a big and huge problem over here in Pakistan, especially in a textile and garment. I am just talking about the problem inside the factories, where somehow the workers are visible, their employers are visible. Zehra may talked about in a supply chain where there is a problem where the invisible workers are there. So
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
it's a big issue at the moment in Pakistan, and it will be a everyday thing. Today is a budget day in Pakistan. Government is going to announce their budget, annual budget, and there's a no remedy for the workers. So everybody, employers say that they don't have money, so they can't pay to the workers. The workers say that they have lost their jobs, they are losing their livelihoods, so they need government's subsidies and help. But the government don't have any plan about it. But they are using that days and the corona against the workers. 2 days ago, 9,500 workers from Pakistani steel mill has been retrenched by the government. And yesterday, 11,000 polio workers, majority of them, 90% are women, they were retrenched from their jobs, and they were recruited by the UNICEF, recruited by the WHO, and they have retained their workers at a time when the government have ordinance, a new special law that no worker can be retrenched or unpaid during the lockdown. But you see that UNO bodies, who are the sister organizations of ILO, and ILO says about workers' right and number of things. But these UNICEF and the WHO also doing whatever the private sector employers are doing with the workers. That is the worst condition, and we are looking into it. Next time, if you ask question, I will let you know how could we cope it with it and how could we catering the need of the workers.
Yeah. Yeah, you already briefly touched upon it, like the supply chains, that there's a big problem and that the consequences are now severely visible in countries as Pakistan, but also Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are so much affected by catastrophes that happen in China, but also decisions that are made by big international apparel industries in places like Europe, for instance, shows how entangled our lives have become. Yet a big part of the world doesn't seem to be familiar, or rather doesn't want to be familiar with the story behind the T-shirts they sell. I heard this phrase once: if you follow the production chain of a big multinational brand, you're likely to end up in the house of a home-based woman worker. And that made me wonder, Zehra, if you could perhaps explain us a bit how these supply chains usually work in the global textile industry, what countries Pakistan is connected to, for instance, but also particularly the share of these women workers in the garment production that are so important but are barely visible.
Yes, global supply, we are saying that the supply chain is the way for the employers or the industrialists, it's the way to reduce the cost or paying the less to the workers and getting the more and more benefits. So they use all the platform which they have, they can go to. So so the women are majority are the women who are engaged with this sector. So you can say that the garment industry is rapidly shifting from formal work to informal work. So there is two kind of work, like in factory, which is the formal work, but it is also becoming the informal. So now workers are hired on the third party system and even on the contract basis. So many workers are working on the piece rate, not on the salary. So, and the second sector is the home-based sector or the informal sector, in which the domestic workers, agriculture workers, hawkers, all these people coming in the informal sectors. Uh, but I will talk about more about the home-based workers because we are organizing them. Like we are saying that in Pakistan, there are 20 million informal workers are engaged with different sector, and out of which 12 million are the women workers in there. So our Pakistani economy, you can say, is mainly dominated by the informal sector. You can say that 77 to 75% are the informal workers. Total of our workforce, like we have the workforce of 65 million. So majority, like 70% are the informal workers. They are doing different kind of work, and not only in textile but also the other sectors as well. So most women in Pakistan are part of the informal economy or low wage labor market, because they are getting very less payment, and even they are not access to the social security net, even they don't have any protection. And during corona it's multiplied, their miseries is multiplied. So that's how the informal the supply chain works here. Like brand work, the brand is located in one country, and they are producing or taking
I see that there's something wrong with your connection. Zehra, you seem to be falling out for a while.
Sometimes there's call, yeah, mobile call sometimes, so it interrupt.
Mm-hmm. Um, we'll
May I
see.
ask?
Do you want to say something, Nasir?
She is in other room. May I help her?
Well, maybe she can, if, wait, let's see. If it's not reacting now, we can maybe just go to the next question and then see how it will, how she will get back and will be able to join us. Um, So yeah, Zehra was actually also kind in the middle of talking about it. The textile and apparel industry in Pakistan is its second largest employer after agriculture. Um, a study by the Human Rights Watch estimated that almost 38% of the manufacturing labor force is working in the garment industry. Yet garment workers have struggled more than anyone in unionizing, in connecting with each other. And Nasir, you work for the deputy as deputy general secretary for the National Trade Union Federation Pakistan. So connecting these people and making sure their voices are heard is something that you've been fighting for a long time already. Could you maybe explain why it is that these garment workers experience such difficulties in unionizing, and what the obstacles are that they have to overcome in doing so, and how your work is also helping them?
First, I want to clear it. When we talked about a textile and garment, then is the 38%. But if we talked about a cotton related factory, cotton from whole supply chain, from cotton field to the factory, so it's more than 60%
Yeah.
total work, including cotton fields, the workers work over there. And we are going to also organize them in a supply chain, because if the workers in a uh, cotton field, they are not producing cotton without slavery, without bounded labor. So how could the cloth will be clean? So that's why we are raising that question, that a supply chain should be more deepened to the not just the factories but also to the cotton fields. So that is the one thing. So you talked about unionization in textile and garment. I think that less than 1% workers are organized in textile and garment. So it's a very unfortunate and is a very pessimistic numbers. It's because in majority of factories, especially in textile and garments, workers don't have a written contracts. So if you want to register a worker, it will requirement of the registration that anybody can show that he or she is employed with that factory. If the workers don't have the appointment letter, they can't register themselves with the as a union with the factory, labor department. So that is the one problem. The other big problem is that workers are not only a 5% workers are registered with the social security and pension schemes. And these there is also a problem that employer just pay the fee of contribution of a worker, but what the card they get from the social security institute, it was not given to the worker. The company keep it with them and just give the institute, social security institute, that get the money, and they don't care about that card will should go to the workers. So that is another problem. So I think that in that context we have taken a new initiative. We have tried to ask the government and try to make a legislation with the government that there should be a sectoral unions, just like in a Europe. In Pakistan, there is a no sectoral union. Every factory have a union, and that union only have a negotiation or a collective bargaining with the for that factory, not for whole sector. So if we have a union for whole sector, it will resolve the problem. But it need a legislation on it, and we started to work on it. But now the condition is that because even before the after the agreement with the IMF, there was a lot of resentment in the workers, and workers were very much angry on it. But now, before the corona, there was a problem that we always motivate the people, motivate the workers, mobilize the workers to come for their rights on the demonstration or activities. But this is a new phenomena in Pakistan. And this new phenomena is that workers are spontaneously themselves, they are coming out of the factories. First, they protest inside the factory, then they get out of the factories. They go to the press clubs and open on they block the roads. That is a new phenomena. It was in 1969 when all over the world there was a left movement and students movement was there in 1960. The same was in Pakistan. The workers and the students, they come out in the fact in huge numbers against the state. And now again is the new phenomenon that the workers are coming out everywhere. If they don't have union, no problem. They are very much now as angry, violent, and militant. But they are not unified actions. They are separated action, but the same kind of action. Because the labor department is not doing for them anything. The local system of to resolve the mechanism don't resolve their issues. That's why they are going to the street and they want street justice. So number of factories, workers get their rights. They after they have cordon of the factories, they are picketing at a dharna at the factory. So they force the employer to accept their demands. So that is a new phenomena, and I think that it will be a culminated on a new kind of labor movement. Is more than a trade union movement. Is it would be a informal way of a trade union, because formal way of a trade union is failed, because in a tripartite mechanism whatever they have agreed to do it, they don't accept it. The employers sit with us, they agree with us, just like they agree with us that during the lockdown, all workers will get their salaries, or no worker will be retrenched. We force the government to give them some kind of incentive. So State Bank of Pakistan given a 3% on interest, 3% interest loan for 5 to 6 years. At the time when there was interest rate was a 13%, the government is giving to the employer on a 3%. So, but they get the money, they get all the benefits, but they don't want to give to the worker whatever they have discussed and agree in a tripartite mechanism. So that is a frustration, and people are taking a new way to cope with the situation. And we are, as a trade union, we are going with them, we involve with them to channelize their activities everywhere. So first time is that in the last 3 months, the National Trade Union Federation become a focal and a pivotal point for the workers. Wherever they are fighting, we are with them. That is a new era for us in the labor movement in Pakistan.
Yes, because I also read that, of course, the Corona lockdown confronted us all with challenges, such as the question of how these demonstrations or how protests can take place now with social distancing, for instance. And last month, NTUF did organize a demonstration, but that one was met with oppression and with violence by the police. Can you maybe?
Yeah, I'll let you. It was not organized by us, but our comrades who work in that factory, they were in it. Yeah, so it was a spontaneous reaction of the workers. It was a denim clothing which is producing for H&M, Inditex, and H&M and a Zara. So in that factory, they have retrenched 15,000 workers from their 8 units. Yeah, and the remaining they don't want to give them a bonus which is due on a Eid festival. So there was a frustration in the workers, and workers get out of the factory and they organize a peaceful demonstration. Then there was a firing on the workers, and the workers were, after Eid, they have filed a one case with the police and they have arrested the workers. That was the case. But it has flared up the problem. So when there was a firing and then when there was workers were arrested, so the employer was also become a fearful. They think that there was a retaliation. So there was a indirectly in a background there was a pressure from the government and also pressure from the other employers that that was a not good thing and anything can be happen. That's why number of factories after that firing, workers were paid their salaries and also their bonuses, and they were very much fearful that there might be a retaliation from the workers. So we have also going to file a complaint with our international partners, with the H&M, that in their factories they are getting work in a very slavery in a just like a workers work under a in a just like a slaves in the factories.
Yes, it's sad to see that Zehra has left us again, but I'm pretty sure that she's trying now to get in again. But let's just move on and see when she's back, then we can continue our talk with her as well. But I'm also wondering because, as you say, there are, of course, you already mentioned it right in the beginning of these big apparel brands canceling orders, violating labor regulations and laws. And I think I can say that there is this intuitive logic that big companies have an obligation to ensure that the workers' rights in their supply chains are protected. That's also what several organizations and campaigns and trade unions are fighting for, are pleading for. And that companies should show solidarity and responsibility with their workers. But perhaps solidarity alone is not enough. And what we need is political action by international trade unions, but also by regulations supported by the EU governments. What are your thoughts and hopes when it comes to reorganizing the industry, Nasir?
Yeah, one thing is that you see Pakistan signed a number of global framework agreements. Pakistan have a GSP plus mechanism with the European Union. Pakistan have signed and ratified 38 ILO conventions. Yeah, so number of conventions are there, but still uh, there is no practical purposes all of it. So it need that on a paper things are very good, and when they are in a negotiation table internationally and locally, employers and number of these big organizations, they are very polite and pro workers are a human rights. But in a practice, they don't have anything, any mechanism for it. Just like an industrial global union have a global framework agreements with the different brands, but there is a no mechanism about it. How could we go for a complaint system? The same is with the GSP plus. Pakistan get a GSP plus status with the European Union, and there is a zero duty on a Pakistani product going to Europe. But there is a no mechanism for it. There is 29 points, including labor rights in it. But everywhere there is a violation, and nobody is care about it, and workers don't have any mechanism to how to make a complaint, and there's a no monitoring system. So that's why we think that there need a new kind of watchdog with a very active people's and not only a workers but a people's participation, conscious people's participation. The workers from different political spectrum, social democrats, greens, left, ultra left, communist, all anarchists, all come together, because the problem is in the south is that we are not that strong. We are not that strong to raise our voices. It needs a political dimension of a things. And that dimension in a Europe, we need some kind of a voices who can raise our voices over there. So we think that problem is a global one, is a trans-border problem, because the whole capital is moving from come from a north to south and south to north and then again north. So if the problem and the money and the capital is from all the global and the problem is a global one, so we have to look into a globally, otherwise we never resolve the issue. Number of times, number of examples we have when we act unitedly from north and south, we get a result, just like a Baldia Ali enterprise factory fire. There was a problem in Pakistan, 2,260 workers died, and we raised our voices when in Germany, human rights, trade unions, and people's and workers' right organization collaborate with us, cooperate with us. We put a dent and we put a pressure on a cake and we get number of compensation from them. Still, we short of our expectation, but it was a beginning that in a history of ILO, we are first time get a compensation through a ILO convention on a compensation. So in that context, we can say that international solidarity in era of a Corona and after Corona, it will play a very, very significant role. Just like in America, you see that people are coming out when a black boy was died because of something, the police has brutality. We are using these symbols in Pakistan also. That the same kind of we are not taking, we are not giving us a chance to breathe. People use that slogan. So it means that things are becoming a global one. And the oppression is the same with different degrees. So in that concept, we think that we should look into a very seriously about it. Otherwise, in the South, we can't survive in that way if we don't have voices and our friends in the North.
Yeah. Thank you. I also quickly saw that Zehra was also able to join again. So perhaps if, I don't know if she's able to.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, and is your camera working as well, or?
No, I don't think so. It's working.
Yeah, okay. Then we'll just try it like this. It's fine.
Okay.
Maybe it's a question actually that we got from the people watching us, but it also connects to what you said, Nasir, of the fact that we need this global and this political action. But there's a question from a viewer who asked what he or she can do as a consumer. Should I, as a consumer, buy a T-shirt from H&M, or shouldn't I do that? I don't know if you can answer to this, Sarah, or if you, Nasir, that's up to you, of course.
I think that is not an answer. If you don't buy a thing, it means that somewhere someone lost their job. Yeah, but you can see that, you can say that, you have a voice that you can say that this cloth which is you are buying, it should be produced in an environment where the safety of the workers is the first and workers get some kind of a decent wage. That you can say that, and that can happen, and we can do it. So it's not a it's not buying is not it resolves the issue. I think that from workers' perspective, we think that we should ask them if they respect ILO conventions, they respect Pakistani law in theory, they should respect them in a practice. And it's not impossible for them, because if they give for one t-shirt, if they will double the price, double the wage of the worker, it will be a zero 0.5, 0.50 cent. Yeah. So it no problem for the consumer, even no problem for their profit. So why the workers' salaries are wages are so low? So we can say that just like H&M say that in 2019, the H&M will give a decent wages to living wage to all the workers in their supply chain. He has committed, but the H&M didn't do that one. So I think that it is a possible that a worker will get a social security, worker will get a pension, worker will get a living wage, and even the profit of the supplier and profit of the brand will not affect. So I think that a consumer can play a very important role in it. They question.
Yes, I also agree with the comment, Nasir, that our people need job first thing. So we can use the consumer as a pressure group to pressurize the brand and even EU government and other government, that from where they are getting their merchandise, they should follow the rules and laws and regulations. So that will be matter for us.
Yes. Yeah, very clear. Thank you. Maybe Zehra, now that you're back, because you were talking actually about the women in the informal industry and their share in the garment and textile production. Could you maybe continue where you left the discussion about their share and their importance of in the whole industry?
Yes, I think where I left it, I think I have to start in another way. Like garment industry is rapidly shifting from formal to informal work, including homes. So where local and international both workers are work is going on. So the women in Pakistan are traditionally basically a skilled one. They specialize in sewing and embroidery, and the skill passed down from one generation to another. And now their work is growing in textile, especially in stitching departments. This also means that the share of the women in garment or the value added product or the work is increasing. Similarly, if the work is being transferred at the home, they are being provided work at home by the third party contract system or the contractors or the middleman. So which is of very low value, such as like cropping, buttoning on the shirt, or embroidery work, or the work of the bed sheet, folding the bed sheet, sides of the bed sheet. It is not visible yet, but you can say that the home-based workers are coming in the supply chain. They are linked with some brand locally or internationally, but it's not visible because we don't have any data or any research on it, So there is a lot of work we have to do on this, or to collect the data. Like I give one example, that our members are engaged with the WWF work. It's a brand, WWF, and they are stitching school bags for the children in Africa. When one reporter came to us, and she did interview with the whole home-based workers, and she printed that article in the newspaper, which is published in African country, in one of the African country. So the members getting phone from their employers, from middlemen, or from their contractor, that you have lied about us, and we are not giving you work. So that's how we find that supply chain, that our members are engaged with the WWF in Africa. So in the same way, and in second way, you can say that the owner is working through contractor who are linked with the workers outside the factory. So there is one proof that So there is no proof that their work is done outside the factory. The greed of profit drive uh, employers uh, to a place where they have more advantage or the benefits. That is why in garment where there is a value added work and sitting work, you can say, there are women. They hire a lot of women. Simply, they are now seeing that if the profit is working from the home, so they shift the work from factory to home. Uh, like we have an example of the sport boots, like football. Many footballer stitchers are working at home and small stitching units in Sialkot. And garment industry is fully you can say that the women are engaged as a contract workers in factories as well, on the piece rate, and even in home, so they are not getting paid betterly, or you can say that that is up to the minimum wage of the which we the province have. So this is the issue which they are facing, and the workers, especially the women workers, are facing in this whole supply chain. Hello, hello, hello,
Hello.
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 Ah, yeah, sorry, it was my mistake. I'm sorry. So now you can hear me, yeah? Everything is fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Zehra, to quickly go back and also to maybe reflect a bit on your work, as I also asked about Nasir, how he is resisting or helping these voices of these garment workers heard. A couple of years ago, the Home Based Women Workers Federation managed to get a local policy addressing the rights of the home workers legalized by the state, which was a huge thing because it was the first time that the rights of the home workers had been legally addressed. But reading on the labor violations that are still happening today, yeah, made me somehow realize that the Pakistan government, who should be accountable for these labor violations not to happen, are failing to do so. And knowing that almost 70% of the country's export comes from the garment industry, one would expect the government to take care of it, but they aren't, it seems. It seems they're handing over the industry to the thirst of these big profit brands in the global north. How does this happen? Has it always been like this, or is it a trend that has been reinforced by neoliberalist thinking of the last decades?
Mm. Yes, and in new liberal policies, the privatization is the main way that government is applying to curtail the rights of the trade union, basically. So the informal work is also increased, and what we did that we organized these home-based workers because the majority are the women in the home-based sector. So that's why we went to these women and organized them and asked them to come and sit in at one place, and then we started study circle and training with these home-based workers, and we make them aware that if they will not come out from their home, or they will not organize themselves in a union or in a group or a pressure group, the state will not give anything. So they understand, the old women understand this, so we came out from home to road. So that's how we are able to get some relief from the government. Like you said that it's the first time in the history of Pakistan that one province has ratified, or you can say that recognize the home-based workers as a labor. So now in Sindh province, all the home-based workers, either they are women or men, they all are considered now as a worker, and they will get the benefit which is written in the labor law or in the labor law. So that's how we are working here in Pakistan, and we are still hopeful that um, like we have many things on the pipeline, but because of the coronavirus, it's stopped many things. Like our council has still we didn't the government is didn't announce the council which has the main role that they will collect the data of home-based workers in one province. That how many home-based workers are exist in Sindh and with which sector. So we can clearly say because we don't have the data, so we can't say anything. What we have saying is just an estimation about the workers, formal workers, or about the informal worker. That is just estimation because we don't have the data. So that's why we are asking for the data to government for the formal workers as well and for the informal workers as well. So, but the thing is that uh, like you said that the labor department is also working with the employers. So it's very difficult to work and to understand all the mechanism. So the thing which we did here is that we, due to our activism, we become the part of the tripartite mechanism. So first time the informal workers become the part of all the tripartite mechanism which we had in Singh. Like we are sitting in the labor standing committee, and its work is that you have we have that right that we can formulate a new law or amend the law. Even we are sitting in the minimum wage board, like I am the member of the minimum wage board as well. So we have also working on the minimum wage for these workers as well.
Yes,
So
thank you.
I want to share things that
I think you can, if you wanted to say something, Nasir.
yeah. I said that there's one side of it is a trade union side, a labor side of that economic side of the whole dimension of this supply chain. The other one is a political dimension of it. And because of a corona, now our demands which were blurred before the corona, now it become more visible and more acceptable to the ordinary people and the public. Just like when the state say that Pakistan is a security state and the Pakistani state have their borders are not safe and they are the enemy of the Pakistan, so that we need a huge budget for the defense. And when we say that we need education, health, and to make a much more money on it, when the corona was there, so at that time the doctors and the health system was failed to work. The whole health system was collapsed. So we demanded from the government that in a new budget there would be a equal amount earmarked for health and education as equal to the defense budget. Before that, we were saying for the cancellation of international all the debts, it nobody care about us. But now the government of Pakistan itself, along with Ethiopia and many other countries, they are also demanding that one. And today, their loan were deferred for 1 month, 1 year. But we say that for the cancellation of the loan, that is another one thing. The most important thing was that from the workers' perspective, we were saying that there must be a universalization of a health and a social security system. And now the government is looking into it and how good they will do it. So that is the way. And for all these designation, whatever we are thinking about a corona as a political statement, we demonstration, everything, and then we have written a pamphlet, and it was went to 70,000 households to give to the different people. So we have make our commitment with the political perspective to the people that we are not just for a relief work, we have given a relief to the 550 to 5,000 families immediately after the corona spread. And then from our own NTF platform. And with the other philanthropist organization, we gave to 50,000 families 1 month ration to them, and also contribute some money with the Pakistan's medical prime medical association, doctors and the paramedical association. We work with them around the 150,000 pamphlet we distributed. We have pasted banners and number of things in a different industrial zones. Whenever there is a problem with the worker will come to us and we resolve their problem with the labor department, and we will go to the court. We have also filed a constitutional petition with in a higher court about the right of workers, right of livelihood, and right of their wages. So in that context, we are working on a different dimensions. The another dimension is this one. We are talking with you as an international issue. We are making it. We think that it will not be resolved if we don't have a international dimension of that one, and that dimension is a very vital and very important and a very decisive, because the crisis is a global one.
Yes, yes. I also hear that if maybe somebody could mute yourself for a while, because there's like a very bad feedback. So if Nasir or Zehra could maybe, yeah, now it's over. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. So I've got a question, and it connects again to the first one actually. So the question of whether or not, as a consumer, we should buy clothes, whether or not from H&M or no. But here it's a question from somebody asking if there are any labels that we can use to recognize fair working conditions. Are there brands that work globally that can serve as an example and things we can go to as an alternative? Maybe if some of you wants to answer to this, Nasir, Zehra?
Sorry again. I don't. Sorry, I don't understand.
No, no problem.
Your voice is not clear.
I'll ask it again. I'll ask it once more. So it's a question by somebody from the audience asking if there are labels that we can use, that we can depend on, and that show us that the working conditions have been respected, that these working conditions in which these t-shirts or these garments have been produced are just, are human. And he's also wondering if there are brands that work globally that can serve as an example. Brands we should look for when going shopping, and things that we know that are better, cleaner, more sustainable than other ones.
I can't mention a single brand who are getting their merchandise from the south. They are not. They are very much in a work to respect labor standards. Yeah. So it need a long way to do it, because they are used to cheat the consumers. It's not a fault of the consumers, but they show to them that they have the global framework agreement, they have a social responsibility on a Facebook or on their website. They say that they respect all these things. And the problem is that with the consumer and the producer, the workers in a supply chain, they don't have a link with each other. That's why the brands and the suppliers are cheating the workers, and the brands are cheating to the consumers. So we need a very strong connection with the consumers and the workers in a supply chain. That will expose the uh, wrongdoing of the suppliers and the brands. So I think that for the decades they are doing in the same practice. They have just like social auditing. They get audit from some repute organization and show the people that okay, all things are very good over here. Yeah. So these social auditings are the private one, and they are getting money from the buyers and the suppliers. So they get whatever they want to get it. So we think we have to understand their tools to cheat consumers. So we can aware the consumer about it, and we can resolve that issue if the consumer have a consciousness about it and they know the tactics of the brands, how to hide their ugly faces. So we purchase the things, but we ask them the questions and
Yes.
we raise the issues like that.
Yes. Um, Maybe a very question to both of you, actually, to wrap this conversation up. Um, as this conversation has showed, and as he's been saying, like several of these labor violations that are happening now had already been happening long before the outbreak of COVID-19. I'm, for instance, talking about the fact that a lot of the garment workers don't have a contract with the factories they're working for, which makes them, of course, very vulnerable because they lack any sort of social protection. Um, but also like the lack of safety measures, the protection, the health measures. Um, Optimists might say that these crises that had been going on already for a long time are now laid bare somehow because of COVID 19. Besides, you also see people gathering and unionizing. So these are can be signs that change is already or somehow very slowly on its way. And that connects to this common held idea of that out of times of crisis, actual change can grow. And without minimizing the devastating effects of the situation of all these people that are working in the garment industry today, I'm wondering what you think the outcome of this crisis will be. And if you think that COVID 19 will be able to somehow demand a reorganization of the garment industry and also enforce this responsibility of those people that should take responsibility, like the big brands. And are you somehow optimistic um, that this can happen due to the outbreak?
Zehra, would you talk?
I
Zehra, would you answer?
I think that Zehra is responded to us that she has a very bad technology and it's not working. So it would be good if you can do it.
Would you hear me? Would you hear me? Would you hear
Now
me?
you,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. So I think that uh, what is happening at the moment, how the workers and the people are reacting uh, about the fear of states, especially I talked with the on Pakistani perspective. The Pakistani state failed to protect workers and on every occasion. So that this government come with a very much funfair, but every day there is a crisis. So in a corona crisis, now the workers are on the road, they are protesting and they are raising the issues for which for we have been asking them for the 2, 4 or 5 decades we are working asking the workers about it. Now workers themselves they are saying that things and they are more radical than us. They are much more open. They are much more in a you can say that in a demonstrations and a protest. So I think that the same is situation in India. The same is situation in Bangladesh and other countries. So I think that a new material conditions are emerging. At the time we are facing all the crises and there is unemployment, livelihood has gone, but at the same time the workers are now much more and the people are much more inclined to listen a political solution of the things. So I think that after a corona, during the coronavirus and after the coronavirus, the movement will take a new leap and it is a launching pad for a new era for us. And especially I think that in Pakistan we have new ways and a new I don't say that is a opportunity, but is a material condition which is open. And now bourgeois parties, the mainstream parties, they are least bothered about workers and the people's issue. That's why people are looking for a new alternate a political dimension and a political organization, other than the existing political parties who don't care about the workers and the people. So the same, I think that the international issue is there. So I think that in a corona we have some material conditions and prerequisites so have a new kind of a change, which is a social one, and it will drastically change the way of life and also the states, the people's and behavior, people's thinking towards the states, and they come to know that these are the states which are miserably failed to resolve the people's issue at the time of virus.
Yes.
Yes, I think we need to make a strategy, a clear strategy. Like we can work in a three level. Nasir said, in Pakistan we have the new venues uh, on which we can gather or organize the workers to demand for their just right. So we need a global alliance as well. First thing is that, and we need also a global laws, like we have raised, and you have raised the issue of Baldia factory fire. So UE is now preparing a new law that if the brand is going anywhere of in the world, they should be follow the rule of what is passed in the EU or European Union or any other country. So we have to ask now the global laws as well, and we need the global campaign as well. Like all the employers have the one platform, like IMF, World Bank, Britain Movement Organization, and other organization, and they are thinking on how they will get the benefit from all these kind of things. So I think the worker should also need some kind of that kind of a platform. If we raise the voice from here, then you can also or the workers from other country can also raise the voice. So it's, I think we have to we need a joint struggle on one issue or two issue. Like we are taking one issue as a contractor, that we don't need any contract system anymore. So in one action should be taken at global level. So I think these kind of strategy, if we can go for it also, then maybe we can achieve a lot of things.
Thank you very much. I'm watching at my time, and I'm afraid we've come to the end of this live stream. I want to thank you. I want to thank my two beautiful guests, Nasir Mansoor, Zehra Khan, for being here with me tonight, for teaching us on the problematic situation of the garment production in Pakistan today, but also and mainly for your inspirational thoughts and ideas on how to make the current system more sustainable and more just for the future. Then the only Thursday, June 25th at 6 p.m. And connecting to the tragic murder of John Floyd and the growing worldwide resistance against it, we will look deeper into racial justice and violence inflicted by state police and border control agents along the European borders. So thank you all once more, Nasir, Zehra, for being here with me tonight, and I hope you all see. I hope to see you all again within 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And